Welcome back for another episode of Theory of Why. A little bit of a different setup today and moving forward. So this new setup is, it's interesting how all these things kind of come together. So over the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking about the structure of the show, and for me, it's been an interesting transition from the show I used to do, which is called Wayncast, to this show, which is Theory of Why, as I relate basically business topics into historical narratives. And one thing that I've noticed as I've done more and more of these is really the need for short form content that can resonate with a business owner. I don't necessarily think it always needs to be tied into a historical year or a perspective in that way. So we're going to do something different for the next several episodes, and we'll see how well it goes, and then we'll evaluate. One thing that's great about podcasting, and I tell all of our podcasters this, is there's certainly nothing wrong with changing things as you get into a show. You might get 20, 30 episodes in and say, hey, I really like the content or the concept, but I might want to change the structure, and that's what we're going to try here. So on today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about 10 questions you should ask yourself as a business owner. Let's get into it. All right, well, here we are. So as we enter into the new year, and as I'm recording this right now, it's December 12th, I think a lot about next year, 2024, what's going to happen, what that's going to mean for our business, ways that I can improve as a leader, as a business owner, things that I can do better on. And I asked my wife the other day, we were getting out of the truck, and I said, 5 years ago, I was 28, and I thought I was in a really good position. I thought I knew a lot about the job I was in at the time. And like in your mind, when you're that young, at least for me, I thought, well, I've already, arrived at the highest aspiration that I can get to. So now it's just going to be incremental changes. And little did I know what the next 5 years was going to unfold with me leaving that company and starting a new company. And all of these things just demonstrated how little I knew at that time. And I imagine 5 years from now, I'm going to look back at this moment and have the same realization. And that's why I truly believe you're never going to stop learning. There's always going to be a capacity for more, and you should never turn away the opportunity to learn something. And even as I'm sitting here right now, I feel like I have a really good grasp on our agency. I feel like I have a really good grasp on leadership, but I know that there's going to be a lot more to learn, certainly. And even reflecting on this past year and my goals for next year, I can very clearly see where improvements need to be made in myself as a leader and being more diligent on certain things, and also within our team. So as I was looking at this study, this little survey that was put out, it was 10 critical questions for business owners. And in these 10 questions, I think if businesses really did go and look through these questions, they would have a lot better identity for their company. They'd have, especially as a small business, a startup business, you're in those first couple of years, you're growing, you're having your first, few hires, and those are all critical decisions. And as I was reading through this list, I was like, man, it would be great if this was required. Like, you fill out your state license for your business and you answer these 10 questions, even if they're not graded. It's just a good mental exercise. So the first question is, what problem does your business solve? And for a lot of businesses, this might be pretty straightforward, right? If you're a restaurant, you're solving the problem of people being hungry, right? If you're a mechanic, you're solving the issue of people's cars who are breaking. If you're a marketing agency, what problem are you solving? Well, there's a lot of problems. You're solving people's issue with their website, with their SEO, with their marketing, social media, their advertising. You're solving the problem largely of people getting more attention, and that attention then leading to conversions. That's really what we do as marketers, isn't it? We bring people attention from the right people that are going to go on to be customers. So answering this problem is it might seem very elementary to be like, well, of course I know what problem my business solves, but I think until you actually write it down and say it and you actually work through this, that's when it actually becomes real and it's cemented within your mind. Because I know for me, when I started, the problem that I solved kept changing month by month, especially in the first few months. Because what would happen is I'm a marketing consulting company, and then someone brings me a problem, and it might be a little bit off the beaten path of what I intended to do. And then, oh, now all of a sudden I'm doing that. And then a couple months later, someone brings me another problem, and now all of a sudden I'm doing that. And I noticed if I were to continue saying yes to every single thing I was doing, chances are I'd be putting myself in a bad position. So, what problem does your business solve? Number two is, how does your business generate income? And again, you might think, well, this is a really elementary question, Rob, but this question can open up a lot of different pathways for your company. I actually met with someone recently who was a party planner, and she would go around and plan events for people and do a lot of birthdays and anniversaries and things like that. And I said, well, how are you finding most of your revenue coming in? And she's like, well, in our industry, it's 100% project based. That's, we only get paid when we do projects. I said, man, that's got to be difficult because it's hard to forecast how much revenue is going to be coming in. And I said, well, have you ever thought about putting people on like a subscription service? Like people have birthdays every year, they have anniversaries every year, right? Have you ever thought about saying, hey, if you pay me this amount every month, that guarantees your spot for next year. It might be a little bit less expensive, so it's good on the cost for them. And you're now building a monthly retainer to where you can project your revenue and you know what jobs you have coming up to a year in advance. That gets them on the calendar, it gets you some revenue, and let's say they're paying you $2,400 for that event. That's essentially $200 a month, so that's a little bit more manageable for them probably, and you can forecast your revenue better. She's like, I never thought about that. She's like, that's never been talked about, and at least to her in her industry, that was never something that was given to her as an option. And knowing how you make your money goes a long way to being able to project what's going to happen in the years to come. Some industries, like remodeling, you can't do a retainer model, right? It's going to be 100% project based, unless you have a maintenance plan or something like that. HVAC companies do that quite a bit. You're always going to have, projects within that industry, but thinking about how your business generates revenue is really important. The next question is, which parts of your business are not profitable? So if you write a map of all the things that you do within your business, what are the things that don't directly make you money? So you can say, these things are directly profitable, these things are indirectly profitable, and these things just don't make a profit at all. Do you have those identified? I do this with positions for our employees quite a bit, where I look at, what's a direct like a direct labor employee who's actually working on a retainer account, what's an operations employee who might not do as much retainer work, and then what is the support staff that's just supporting everything, making everything happen and run, but they're not directly responsible for a client. Those are good things to think about. The next question is, do you have a positive monthly cash flow? And for a lot of new businesses as they're getting started, investing in an accountant or a bookkeeper or someone that's helping manage expenses doesn't seem like something that is worth money. But I'll tell you this, I made this mistake starting out. I didn't have an accountant until 2 years in, and I was just, talking to an accountant once a year for help, but I didn't have someone actually helping me with the books and managing expenses. And had I have done that, I would have paid a lot better attention to what I was spending money on, what I might have been wasting money on. And that was a game changer. When I had that new financial layer come in, it was just a lot better overall. Next is, what is your pricing strategy? And not just what is your pricing strategy, but why is that your pricing strategy? Have you sat down and thought about why you charge what you charge? Is it random? Is it based on feelings? Is there an actual model built behind it? And I'll tell you this, when we put all of our prices online, that just made us instantly stand out from other marketing agencies. When you look at the marketing agencies, and a couple of years ago, it was around this time in 2021, I did a study of the top 25 marketing companies in the Midwest. Only one other one published any pricing. Everything else was you have to reach out. And for me, it's a good qualification metric to put our pricing online, because then people know, well, that's the base, right? That's the lowest level we can come in at. And then based on the size and scope of the project, it's going to do nothing but go up from there. It also makes the sales process easier, because then we can just pull up the website, we can review it together. I'm not then giving them a price based on their budget. So if, let's say, someone comes in for a creative package and we're running social media and ads and doing all of that stuff, and let's say they're paying $3,000 a month based on our model, they might say, hey, we have $7,000 a month to spend. Well, if I didn't have my pricing online and if I was dishonest, it would be easy to say, oh yeah, 7,000 is what it's going to be, or it's going to be 6,500, right? But for us, it's just 3,000. There's the scope. This is what we're doing. And that other 4,000, we can either reinvest in more marketing services, or you can reinvest it in other areas of your business that you need to spend money on. And that's a decision that, we can help you make together, or you can make on your own. But knowing where everyone lies at the beginning of a negotiation works a lot better, and it wastes a lot less of my time, and it wastes a lot less of people's time that might not have the budget at that particular time, right? Next is, how effectively do your employees generate revenue? And this is something that is helpful to think about in a classification perspective. So let's say you're an HVAC company and you have field techs and you have installers and you have office staff. How do you decide when it's time to hire the next person? What metrics are you using that say, okay, now it's time to hire another field technician, or now it's time to purchase another truck? So as you're going through and you're assigning things to those employees, how are you determining how much revenue they bring into the company? And this is one of those things that I really don't like, when people, especially employees that might be a little bit more disgruntled with the not the environment, but the economy, and they say, well, I do all of this for the company and they make X amount of dollars and they make more than what they're paying me. And it's kind of the point of a business. The point of the business is to bring people together for a like-minded mission and to generate a profit. And if you have good leadership and good ownership, that profit should continually to be dispersed throughout the organization. And what's interesting is people will agree to certain wages and terms, and then they'll complain about those wages and terms that they have agreed to. And that's why I like the free market economy, is because you can literally go anywhere else, especially right now, and find another job. You can go work somewhere else. People are dying for good talent. So if you're incredibly talented, you can absolutely find a good place at a good company. So being able to measure how much revenue your employees generate is really important, because that'll tell you at what point you need to hire another person, because then that new employee is going to open you up to X amount of revenue based on what you're paying them. Next, and this is probably something apart from us treating employees exceptionally well, this is probably the next most important thing in our agency, which is, how do we ensure that we retain good clients? What methods are we putting in place to make sure that we're keeping the people that we want to work with? And this is obviously the first and foremost thing, is doing a great job on the services that we're contracted for. But then there's all the little touches as well, making sure that we're communicating well, making sure that we're being thoughtful about what they have coming up next as a business. And if you're a service company, I keep using the trades as examples because I think they're great examples. But if you're a roofing company, after you've done the job, are you following up a week later to make sure that everything is okay and that they're happy? Are you checking in to make sure that everything was done to their liking and that there's no further issues? Those little touches can help turn that one job into several, because now when all their friends want a roofing company, remodeling company, you're going to be the person they're going to recommend because you did such a great job. Next is a piggyback on that, but are your customers going to make referrals? And a friend of mine who runs CirrusNet, and it's a networking group that predominantly operates out of Washtenaw, Livingston County. He says one of the highest compliments you can get as a business is a referral, and that might sound like it's fine, it's whatever. But when you actually have someone like a current client make a referral, to your business. It feels incredibly good because you know that you're doing a good job for them, and they think so highly of you that they think you would do a great job for their friend or associate as well. So, will your customers make referrals? That question, thinking about that, working through that, thinking about your review strategy, your retention strategy, how you serve people well, all of that is going to lead to more or less business based on how well you treated that customer. The next question is who are your most valuable customers? Which customers require the most amount of time? And then how is that time transition into revenue? And this is mainly just so you can identify what types of clients you want to take on and which ones you don't. So what clients are the most effective for your business and which ones are not? So this is where you get into your customer profile. What types of behaviors or traits or qualities do you find that most of your successful clients or customers, what are they a part of? And when you identify that, then that makes your advertising a lot easier because then you can go and attack and market to those types of people. So if you're if you're a bakery and you find that, all of your catering is being done through this one area of town, then put all your advertising in areas of the county or the state that are similar to that makeup, because then you know that those customers are going to be more receptive to what it is you're selling. So for us, we want people that are in a growth stage of their company. So they've been in it for 2 to 5 years and they're looking to grow and they want to have a bigger presence. And so those are the business owner profiles that we try and go after, right? So knowing who your target customer is and how you can market and advertise to them is effective, and just as effective as knowing who you don't want as a customer. Like, we don't want people who communicate poorly. We don't want people who treat our staff in a disrespectful manner. So we know who not to go after. And even if we can't isolate that into an advertising audience, we know at least on the first meeting who we don't want to continue pursuing if they're more disrespectful or if they just seem like they want to just turn this over to us and never talk to us again. They just want it to run on their own. So we know about who we're going to want, right? The last question is the one that is probably a little vague, but I'll give some specificity to it, and that's, is your social media effective? And I would take this a step further and just say, is your marketing effective? Can you correlate advertising and marketing efforts from your business to new business? So if you're spending $1,000 a month on Google ads, it's $12K per year. How much is that $12K per year making you, and are you tracking it? So for me, if I go out and I spend $400 on a website ad and I hook a website that's $5,000, well, would I pay $400 to sell a $5,000 website? I think I would. Yeah, absolutely. I do it every day. So those are the things that you need to think about. Is the money that you're spending on social media and advertising, is it actually generating a profit? And one thing that I was taught very early on as a business owner was there's more than just return on investment. There's also return on opportunity. So an example of an ROO, or return on opportunity, would be, are you dedicating time into networking and into just meeting people? And it's hard to correlate that into a dollar figure based on your time, but there's opportunities that come from that as well that may come in down the road. So it's not something that you can just go to once and expect it to pay off, but there's also a return on opportunity from being in that marketplace. And having a podcast is a great way to look at a return on opportunity, because you're networking, you're meeting with potential clients, you're putting yourself out there, you're building credibility. All of those things go into your return on opportunity. So I want you to think about these 10 questions, and I'll make sure that this is linked up in the show notes so you can take a look at the 10 questions yourself and just go through them. All of those things are wildly important to actually looking at, your business and how successful it is. And these are things that you should do continually. I opened the show by talking about, at the end of the year, reflecting on what's happening for next year. And every, right between Christmas and New Year's, I sit down and I really, truly think about for quite some time, was I an effective leader this year? Did I do a good job? Did I treat people well? And when didn't I do that? When did I fail? When did I make mistakes? And how can I get better on that the following year? And it's hard, and especially the longer I do this, the harder those questions become, because you don't want to admit that you failed, that you've done something wrong. But for me, I've always found that the faster I can come to terms with the fact that I've failed or I've let someone down in a certain way or I haven't done my job as I should, the quicker I can recover from that. So it really is setting your ego and pride and all of these things aside and just taking an honest look at how well you're running your company. So that's it. This is the new format for Theory of Why. So I hope you guys like it. We'll be back next week for more. Take care.